traffic, isn't it? Welcome back, and in a seamless transition, here is the next slide which we wanted, and Reeve will talk us over this one.
Absolutely, I will. So I better deliver, really. We've got plenty of anticipation for this one. Here is our track diagram for the Laguna Seca Raceway. 2.2 miles of American tarmac here, as you say, Monterey, USA. 11 corners. It's a fairly old track as well. Moments to watch out for are going to be the Andretti hairpin, some overtaking opportunities there, maybe into turn 5 as well, and running through 9 and 10. But of course, the part of the Laguna Seca that we all know is that iconic corkscrew corner complex. The drop down the cliff as you tumble down to the bottom of the circuit can catch a few cars out if you're not careful, particularly these front-wheel drive cars with a bit of weight over the front axle. So that could be fun to watch, but it's going to be great viewing nonetheless.
It is, very excited for it, and been a while since I've called a race on this particular configuration, so much so that I've completely forgotten about the entire circuit apart from the corkscrew. But we will refamiliarise ourselves with it over the course of the next couple of hours. So looking forward to the racing. As ever, we have a hot lap to look forward to, which is, you'll notice this is an anti-clockwise circuit. I think probably the only anti-clock circuit that we do on the current schedule. So a chance for everybody to unwind a little bit, having got a little bit, shall we say, wound up clockwise. We do go anti-clock on this one, as you'll see. So does it make a difference? No, the only circuit we had anti-clock in the UK prior to Knockhill going both ways was Rockingham, which was good. Personally, I hate the Knockhill anti-clock, much to the jock's disgust. Unfortunately, I don't like that, but not a good. Are we ready for the hot lap? Have we got it? So let's have a look at the fantastic Laguna Seca track. As Reeve mentioned, 2.238 miles, hosted the IndyCar Series, the Mazda Raceway Laguna Seca, and we are virtually on board with Eric Axelson, the championship leader, heading down the main straightaway, as they say in the States, down towards, again, as Reeve said, the Andretti hairpin. Mario Andretti, of course, a multi-race winner here in the big time. Double apex corner is turn 2, heading down towards the right-hander at turn 3, now virtually 90 degrees. And then under the bridge, heading down through turn 4, and then we go left-hander at turn 5. Once we get there, it straightens out round about here, so into turn 5. Now, a little bit of a short straight, as far as I know, unnamed, this straight, probably has got one, the locals have probably given it, under the bridge, and down into turn 6, which leads us onto the Rahal straight. Again, Bobby Rahal, one of the drivers that has done a heck of a lot of winning here at Laguna Seca over the years. Now the part that we were all waiting for is the corkscrew. Here we go, 7, 8 and 8A, the turn numbers. An 18-metre drop, would you believe? Sensational piece of racing tarmac. Nearest we've got to it in the UK is probably the one on Anglesey. Then it's down through Wayne Ramey curve, which is turn 9, before we get to turn 10, the final corner on the track, turn 11, which we've just been through, and that completes a lap with Eric Axelson. Let's just wait for him to break the virtual speed, which he does in 1:28.71. His practice time earlier today, 1:28.3, so he's already over and above that. Eric with plenty of experience of this track, having, when I delved into the VRRC records, I think he won when the Mazda Series visited here a little while ago. Qualifying underway, so Reeve, let's have a look and see how those times are settling down.
Yes, we saw in practice it was looking fairly close. That margin has expanded ever so slightly. There's a few changes as well. It's still Eric Axelson on the top in qualifying at the moment, a 1:28.4 being his best time. He's just over a tenth ahead of Thomas Potter, running in P2 at the moment, a 1:28.6. And then there's a few hundredths of a tenth, rather. Sorry, I'll try that again. I've just made up a unit. A few hundredths between a few of the cars behind there as well. On board with Eric, though, and it's looking good for him.
As ever, you know, Eric had I don't say slightly off week last week, but, you know, just the one podium. So probably was a little bit frustrated with that. But again, you know, really decent scoring from Eric Axelsson last week. Okay, Rich just offering to let us know about the shortfall, which we will catch up with at some point as we look at Craig Curtis, who's running in P3 at the moment. Eric, you might remember, had a second and an 8, but he's been on the podium every single round that we've had. So all 5 of the ones that we've had so far, and the pace that we've got up front seems to be pretty good going. So it looks like he will. You'd be brave to bet against him getting a podium at each one, so running well. Craig Curtis third. Andy Dorman's hit a real rich vein of form at the moment. He's in 4th place from Chris Blakey. Joel Lask in 6th. Johnny Ogden next from Andy Carroll.
Ball at the moment with Craig Curtis. He's just gone purple through that first sector, finding a little bit of the gravel there as well. I imagine that's going to slow him down. Is he abandoning this lap? I think he might be. We're going to go on board with Andy Dorman, who also improves through that first sector. Hopefully has a few more fortunes through the middle sector here as we run through towards the corkscrew. Now he got that big ascent up the hill before it all gets a little bit scary. You can't quite see the braking zone. You have to stamp on those brakes. You don't want to lose too much time and find yourself on the outside of the corkscrew, but you also don't want to careen into a wall that is sat opposite the corkscrew as well. It's a very scary corner to negotiate, even in sim racing, because it's so blind and it's a decently high speed as well.
It is very much. Just looking through previous qualifyings for this series, Eric Axelsson obviously has had 3 pole positions, Pascani, Barcelona and Donington, so locked out the first 3 events on pole position. Thomas Potter has had a P2 as well, so no stranger to being up front. That was at Donington Park. Then Craig Curtis had 2nd place at Nurburgring GP, but drawing my attention to 4th place at the moment, Andy Dorman has had a 5th in qualifying, but this, if he can maintain 4th position, will be his best quali of the series, and that kind of adds to the momentum that we're seeing from him at the moment. So Andy Dorman having a good run of things with just 1:43 remaining on the clock for this qualifying session.
On board a moment with Eric as he goes purple through that first sector to 28.4 to beat to 33.8 is a strong first sector. It's certainly not a million miles ahead of everyone else. He does lose time through the 2nd sector as well as we dart through the corkscrew. Now just a couple of braking zones to go. You've got turn 9, turn 10. These are very crucial parts of the lap. Some overtaking opportunities to be had as we stamp on the brakes once again for turn 11. The final corner, just kissing the apex there, riding the curb ever so slightly. What's it going to be? Will it be an improvement? Let's see. As we come across the line, he loses time through the middle sector. He crosses the line, gains time through the 3rd sector as well. It's a 1:28.331, 0.3 of a second ahead of his nearest rival. Eric is absolutely flying at the moment.
He is, Reeve, and do you know what? I mean, that's just thousands slower than his practice time, and this is where he's, you know, jumped on board, got in, and he's under pressure, isn't he, really, to deliver a quick time. So this is mightily impressive from Eric Axelsson. Thomas Potter, impressive as well, though, in P2, still there from Craig Curtis in 3rd as we follow the teapot on this lap. Let's see what he can do. A little bit of a mistake there as he bumps the curbs, but again, a reminder that, you know, Thomas is the youngster in this championship. I think we've got another teenager perhaps joining us next week. We won't break the news yet until that's joined, but might have some teenage competition next week.
Certainly, it'll just be making me feel slightly old, really. How many years now? I don't want to think about how many years it's been since I was a teenager already. But we're on board at the moment with Thomas, as you say, losing out a little bit through the 1st sector this time round. The checkered flags are now being waved for qualifying here, so this will be all she wrote for all the drivers currently who aren't on their final flying lap, and I think that is most drivers by the looks of things. Thomas does improve through that middle sector, though, so is he clawing it back? Late on, we saw Eric Axelsson making the difference in the final sector on his previous fast lap attempt. Let's see what Thomas can do now as we head through the final couple of corners. Just a dash to the checkered flag to go. using all that 335 horsepower as Thomas crosses the line, and it is an improvement. Unfortunately, it's not enough of an improvement, but it's a 128.591. Certainly getting closer. I think there could have been a battle late on. Unfortunately, we ran out of time in the end.
We did. And the checkers are out. The times are in. Fortunately, the Pen of Doom, as Andy McEwen has now christened it, didn't jeopardise too many people when I wrote them down with a couple of minutes to go. So that was all right. And I've got Eric on pole, Thomas second, Craig Curtis. The driver who did manage to improve over the very late part of the session was Joel Lask, who goes up into 5th position at the expense of Chris Blakey. There is Joel's car. So it's Chris Blakey in P6, P7 Johnny Ogden, 8th Andy Carroll, 9th Brad Smith, and Olivia Krasnowska in 10th position, which is Olivia's best qualifying as well. Let's have an advert and talk to the top 3 in just a moment or so.
Well, here we are then, qualifying complete, and we've got some drivers to talk to. Drivers who have done very well. Up first in a P3, it is a Mr. Craig Curtis. Congratulations, Craig. Must be pretty happy with that in the end.
Thank you, Reeve. Yeah, wasn't expecting 3rd place, to be fair. In the practice times, I've been sort of there or thereabouts. Top 6, really. But yeah, surprised to get the 3rd, but hopefully now I can have a good start and beat those 2 off the line and hold everyone up. We'll see how it goes.
I mean, that's what you must be fighting for, mustn't it? Up there at the going for the race win, 2nd row on the grid to start with. It's a track that looks like it's probably going to favour a decent grid position. So is that what you're going for? Going for a race win?
Yeah, hopefully. I mean, hopefully to get round the lap 1 unscathed, and then just look to manage my lines, maintain my lines and consistency. And yeah, because if you hit one of the inside curbs or hit the gravel, you lose so much speed, it's unreal. So if you run wide in one corner, you're going to drop about 3 or 4 places. So you've got to be very much on your guard. And yeah, we'll see. Looking forward to it. So.
Yeah, as you say, it certainly is a bit of a punishing track, isn't it? Is Laguna Seca a track you've got much experience with? How are you finding it out there?
I like it. Yeah, it's very undulating. The corkscrew's gorgeous, as always. It's never changed. So yeah, it's been a fun driving it on various games over the years. But yeah, in these cars, the front wheel drive, you just got to get the lines and the braking points spot on. Otherwise, you're losing a couple of tenths a lap. And yeah, it's like I said, it's hard to hook up 2 or 3 consistent laps. But obviously, with guys ahead and guys behind, it's going to be a fun race.
Yeah, I think it will be. It looks like a fantastic track, as you say. So you mentioned there that it can be difficult sometimes to absolutely nail a good string of laps together at this track. Are you concerned maybe for things like tyre life heading into the race? Perhaps is race pace going to be a bit of a different thing to quali pace in this weekend?
Do you know what? I've not even done a race run, so I'm in as much as in the dark as you are. So it's going to be a learning process in race 1. Race 2, then we'll know. So I might have to make a few tweaks and adjustments. But yeah, we'll see. It's going to be it is going to be a fun race. I mean, that run down into turn 1, it's almost blind when you come over the crest. So it's yeah, it's going to be daunting. But again, you know, race pace wise, I'm just hoping to keep pace or not make sure that Eric and Mr. Potter don't become black dots in my windscreen and hold the guys up behind as well. Andy Dorman's been really quick as well, so I was surprised he didn't beat me on his last lap, but it is what it is. So we hopefully have a good race.
Yeah, he is on good form, Andy, as you say. So thank you very much for your time, Craig. We wish you all the best for what, as you say, should be an enjoyable race. Craig Curtis, P3.
Thank you, Reeve.
Well done, Craig. Thanks, Reeve. Let's go to the young man in second position. Thomas Potter, well done, Thomas. P2 equals you best for the season. And you know, one of the drivers who's had a podium already, or 2 podiums, but you know, 1 in fastest off the front. So decent start to the evening for you, mate.
Yeah, thank you. Just well, as Eric was saying before, I haven't actually spoken to him yet, but I was so close to beating him on my final few laps, just couldn't hook it together. But looking for a P1 in my race.
That's really good. Much lappery in this one in terms of the testing you've done. So plenty of practice.
Yeah. Well, all the Phoenix did a practice race yesterday, which definitely gonna be helpful for today.
Oh well, was that the similar length to what we're doing today?
It was half of it to make it more like to practice overtakes to make sure well, I won't be getting any penalties, hopefully.
Yeah, don't want those, do we? But you know, it does happen, and it's part and parcel of real life racing, as you'll be aware from going karting and going to tracks, and take them on the chin and move on. Best thing to when you get those. I'm sure you won't. So what's the tax? Obviously, you've got to get away, but do you think Eric is beatable?
Around this track, I think if I can get in front of him, I reckon I'll be able to defend him off like I did in Barcelona in my second race. It's definitely possible, but going to be hard.
Any particular difficulties with this track? Any corners that are tricky, or any parts that you particularly enjoyed?
For me, it's going in the corkscrew is the trickiest, but also the most exciting corner. Because if you just get too late on the brakes, you're straight off on the gravel, losing so many positions. But when you get it right, it's so just relaxing to jump across the crest.
When you're old enough, make sure you get the chance to go and do a track day at Anglesey on the coastal circuit, because there's a very similar corner there when you come out of Peel, and sort of it's where you start to head home. You go from the furthest point away from the start finish line, and you start to head back to the start straight in the pits, and the corkscrew there is absolutely wonderful. It's you've got a longer circuit where they don't use it, which is a bit of a shame, but Anglesey is the nearest we've got to that, so one to look forward to for you. So good qualifying. You've got a couple of fast drivers behind you. We've seen obviously Craig Curtis alongside. You've got Andy Dorman behind, and Andy's in a bit of good form as well. How do you maintain your pace? Would you say it's the amount of practice that you do?
It's more not the amount of practice, but how I practice it. So I've been doing some AI races to try learn my defending. And me and Joel have been on today, practicing together to try get the attacking nice and sharp up clean.
That's pretty cool, isn't it? That's pretty cool. And away from the sim side of things, have you been real life racing over the last couple of days, or last weekend?
Yeah, last weekend at UKC. Oh, I showed good pace at UKC, actually top 8 all weekend, but then we tried a major setup change in the final, but just didn't work out. But hoping to be quite competitive at VRRC, as it's my favourite track in the UK.
When's that one coming up, Thomas?
To be honest, I've got no clue. I'll try and get it after race 1 for you.
Yeah, that's all right. I was going to say, just focus on today. That's the most important thing that you need to do at racing. But you know that Rara's coming up next, and a great circuit. Thomas Potter, P2, well done on that. Look forward to seeing how you do in the race, and we'll hand over to Reeve now to talk to our pole position man.
Thank you very much, Richard. Our man on pole, something we've seen a couple of times before, is Eric Axelson. we've not got long until the race, Eric, so I'm not going to keep you for too long. But congratulations on the front row once again. How was it out there?
Thank you, Reeve. Yeah, I'm happy with that lap. To be honest, I think that's pretty much as fast as I can go. So I have to be happy with that. Yeah.
Yeah, you saw we had a decent margin to the cars behind towards the end of qualifying. It came late on with that improvement through sector 3, though, didn't it? Does that make you feel a little bit confident heading into the race, though, with that margin we've seen in qualifying?
Yeah, I mean, it always feels good to have some margin, but it's I think the race will be more about not making mistakes because, as Craig said before, the smallest mistake and you head out in the gravel and you lose so much time. So I think it will be more about not making mistakes in the race than just being super fast.
Yeah, similar words to Craig there. I think it goes to show that it is a pretty exciting racetrack, doesn't it? I'm led to believe that you're a bit of a fan of this track, aren't you? It's
I really like it. It's one of those tracks. It's been like in every a racing game, every match.
Yeah.
Feels like. So it's been I know it, and I like it, but it's a tricky one.
It will, and so many blind corners as well that you have to negotiate. Eric, I'm going to let you go as just under a minute until lights out now, so I'll let you get on the grid and get ready for race 1 here. But that was our man on pole, Eric Axelsen. Congratulations once again.
Thank you, Reeve.
Oh, we're looking forward to race 1. Eric Axelsen, as you heard on pole. Thomas Potter, P2. Craig Curtis next up from Andy Dorman and Joel Lask. Joel Lask on row 3 with Chris Blakey, row 4, Johnny Ogden and Andy Carroll, Brad Smith and Olivia Krasnowska next up. And then it's Catherine Potter. Again, Olivia and Catherine seem to be metaphorically tied together in a lot of the racing we've seen so far. Lee Piercy is next from Paul Laramie, Alex Walker, Kenny Press, Sam Walton, John Jones in 18th from Sam Milner, then Mark Stokes, Adam Lyle. And Josh Martin seems to be having problems. Josh is off the back. This is Josh's reverse grid race then. So we'll see how he can do. But green and black of Eric Axel. So on the front row of the grid, lights out, away we go. A little bit of a stalled start there from Craig. Was that Craig? Yeah, Craig Curtis having a little bit of a staller. And you get a great shot of that blind turn 1 as you heard from as they go over the crest and then down into Andretti for the first time, but Eric Axelsen's got away well from Thomas Potter in P2. Joel Lask up from 5th into 3rd. So Joel really mastering the start there. Chris Blakey 4th from Andy Carroll.
That is disaster for Craig Curtis there. Craig, in his post-qualifying interview, just talking about how a race of minimal mistakes is the way to win it here at Laguna Seca, and unfortunately, it has failed at the first hurdle. We're on board, though, with Thomas Potter, 0.5 of a second down on Eric Axelsen. Joel Lask not too far behind as well. I don't think it's all said and done at all so far on lap 1. Eric isn't able to break away from the rest of the field by any means yet. Joel Lask under pressure from Chris Blakey and Andy Carroll behind. Andy Carroll, we've seen some great pace at this stage of the season. We head through the corkscrew now. Cars making contact. That's Andy Carroll and Andy Dorman, I believe.
It was Andy Dorman, yeah, the white and blue Eden Garage machine getting it all squirrely. We've got about very, very tight battle on for the lead. Thomas Potter is putting massive pressure on the championship leader here and making his bid for the race lead, but it's Eric Axelsen still out front, and Potter is keen here to get into the lead. He wanted the lead off the start. It didn't happen for him, but he's virtually tailgating the championship leader as they go down into Andretti for the second time, and he's going to have a look at the outside here. Remember, double apex corner, might be able to stick his nose down the inside for the second apex, which is what he's trying to do. He's putting Axelsen under massive pressure here. They're side by side, there's space between the cars, and Axelsen maintains the lead. He's got his nose in front, but Potter working hard here, still side by side they go. A little bit of a touch between the two cars, and Axelsen retains the lead despite some really good attacking driving there from Thomas Potter. But it's bringing 3rd and 4th position, Joel Lask and Chris Blakey into the mix.
It is absolutely there. There is Joel Lask and Chris Blakey now swarming around Thomas Potter there. That's not Laramie in the first there. Ignore that's Joel Lask in P2 at the moment as we head towards the corkscrew once again. I think this track is deceptively narrow, actually, for an American circuit. We've seen plenty of door bashing already. This is fantastic action as the cars drop down the corkscrew. They all make it through this time round, though. Eric Axelsen leads from Joel Lask. Thomas Potter under pressure from Chris Blakey, but also putting pressure back on Joel Lask. He wants that P2 back. And Eric Axelsen has somehow, as you say, won out in all this, despite some amazing attacking driving we saw at the start of the previous lap.
Yeah, Thomas Potter, he put second place on the line, didn't he, by having a go, and it was a multi-corner attempt at trying to get through. And of course, the danger is, particularly when you've got somebody like Joel Lask behind you, that you are going to leave the door open. But Thomas was willing to risk that to have a go for the lead. Didn't pay off for him, but he's still in third. Not a huge amount of damage done. He's got a little bit of breathing space at the moment over the fourth car in the lead group, Chris Blakey. Andy Carroll in fifth, not that far back as well, with Johnny Ogden in P6. But out front, it is still our championship leader, Eric Axelsen, having had his fourth pole position. So, you know, even if he doesn't get any more, he's had ex pole position for half of the rounds in this series so far. Remarkable stuff from the Swede as we ride on board with Joel Lask trying to close him down.
Yeah, that gap looking like it's expanding ever so slightly. I think the race runs, apart from the Phoenix crew, seem to be few and far between, so it's going to be a bit of a mystery as we head in later into the race in terms of tyre life. It doesn't look like the most aggressive track in terms of degradation. Some higher speed corners, but it's also some pretty decent braking zones as well. I think that front right, as you mentioned, on the very few anti-clockwise circuit, the front right might find some issues later on. We're on board with Joel Lask at the moment as we have a driver running a little bit wide. They're falling into the gravel trap. The gravel traps which line the outside of this tarmac. None of the Herman Tilke tarmac runoffs here. It's a proper racing track as we start the next lap.
Yeah, I echo that. Yeah, here, Reeve, spot on. Yeah, proper racetrack. As you mentioned, it's an old one, built back in 1957. I seem to recall reading somewhere it was completed in a matter of months. I mean, try doing that nowadays. I think they've had resurfaces and revamps and things like that over the years, so the original state wouldn't be what we have now. But a real success story, replacing the old Pebble Beach runs. I think it's the second time we've referred to Chasing Classic Cars, that great Discovery series. If you haven't seen it, well worth a look, where they have Pebble Beach shows and they bring the cars out here to run some of those. The lap record here, by the way, is Alex Palou in IndyCar, 2 times winner, 1 minute 8.4168. So considerably quicker than these cars, but the mind boggles, doesn't it, when you get a single seater going around at that speed, and of course in real life a full field of cars. What must that be like to watch here?
Touring cars certainly look very energetic, though it's something they work on the corkscrew, don't they? I was a bit worried that, you know, a front-wheel drive car balance is going to shift towards the front under braking and down the corkscrew. I was wondering whether or not we were going to see cars in the race in race conditions at side by side, whether it was going to be a little bit chaotic, but they seem to look very dynamic as they head down that corkscrew.
They do. I'm proud to actually know a couple of guys that have won at top level here, because we've had Colton Hurt has won it twice, and had the pleasure of working with him when he was in British F4. And Indy Lights this year won by Louis Foster, who was a little bit more recent in F4 with us. So really nice to have that connection with successful drivers at this track. But it's Potter back up into P2. Thomas Potter's got the blaze back. And now, can he work with Joel Lask to try and close in on Eric Axelsen? But super stuff from Thomas Potter. It just goes to show you, you know, the youngster keen to have a go, keen to have a play for the league, which he did, but doesn't let his head drop. That's so important for a young racing driver, just to, you know, lose the place, but get his head together, come back. And I've got to say, it's convincing second place at the moment for Thomas.
Yes, it is. You always worry when you see a driver losing a position. Are they going to be able to claw it back? Because yes, they've got great pace, but so's their competition, clearly. And Thomas Potter has shown that he's just got that a little bit more at this phase of the race. It's going to make for an exciting battle, I think. If not now, perhaps towards the end of the race. Especially, I think it's at the top, it's all to play for still.
It is very much. Eric Axelsen still there. Potter second, Lask third, Carroll fourth from Blakey, Dorman, Piercy, Ogden, Laramie, Catherine Potter is now ahead of Olivia Krasnovska, so she's managed to get over Olivia in their continuing personal battle in this series, which has been thoroughly fascinating to watch as we go in car now with Joel Lask in third place. Joel, another driver that won't give up. Like Thomas, he'll maybe just regroup after that pass and try and work out where he can improve things and get back up at second position, and maybe try and work with Thomas to perhaps try and reel in Eric Axelsen. Eric lapping best lap 128.7. Thomas Potter with a 128.5. So Thomas Potter with, I think, with a quick glance down the order, fastest lap of the race so far. That's going to stand him in good stead. First 10 minutes of the race virtually now complete. Eric Axelsen continues to lead this one. The gap around about 2.3 seconds, depending on whereabouts they are on the circuit. The rest of things looking fairly stable at the moment as we look down the order. Lost Kenny Press by the look of it though, off the bottom, which is a shame.
Yeah, looking on at the middle sector of the lap at the moment. Bit of pressure there for, was that Craig? Oh, someone's had an off there. That looks like Olivia. She's back on now. I thought the speed of that off then, that was going to be a bit of a race ender, but good to see able to carry on.
Yeah, Olivia loses out of place. Josh Martin's had a good run here, Reeve. Come from the back. Remember, qualified at the back of the grid. Be interesting to know what his problem was, but he's up into P12, which of course has the significance of being pole position for the partial reverse race. So I said that this was going to be Josh's reverse race, and that could prove to be prophetic, unlike usual comments of mine, which are pathetic. But he could find himself on pole if he stays there. He will want to improve. We've had that conversation with him before, but it could put him towards the front of the grid for race 2. Okay, so Reeve hopefully will rejoin us as we focus on Lee Piercy there from Johnny Ogden and Paul Laramie, and 15 minutes on the clock. So is the tyre wear going to start to play a little bit of a factor in this race as we head towards the second half of the race? Piercy goes through with 7th position. Yeah, I think Rich Hayden's going to tell us what issue Eric had. Now, bear in mind he had a 3rd and a 5th, so I'm guessing it couldn't have been too bad.
No, he tried to do an asymmetric setup on the car because, excuse me, because Lime Rock is mainly rights and fast rights. He set up an asymmetric, which was great for 1 or 2 laps, and then once he got into the race, he started to have some problems with it.
I was going to know, Rich, you'll know this better than me. Are there people that dabble in sim setups and then take those onto the circuits at whatever level? I guess they probably have lots of sim setups at the very, very high levels, but I'm wondering if anyone takes any of this into club racing at all.
I think the most difficult thing is ensuring that what you can change, the parameters of what you can change in the sim are similar to what you can change on the car. For example, you can go on some of the cars in the sim, you can go up to 6 or 7, maybe even 10 degrees of camber, which obviously you wouldn't do in real life. You destroy the inside of the tyres. But it depends on the quality of the model of the car. But I do know guys that try and get me to take their real life setup and apply it to the sim car to make it feel as similar as they can.
Of course, any experience you get of changing settings here, you take into real life well with you, even if the car equipment is
I guess, yeah, absolutely. One of the things that is quite good in the sim is teaching them the differences between camber and toe and brake of the car and what effect that has on the handling of the car. So it's an educational thing for the drivers that aren't maybe as used to doing setup work in real life.
Excellent stuff. Excellent stuff, and all available, of course, with VRRC. Absolutely. As we've seen on the timing tower. Catherine Potter momentarily up into 9th place at the expense of Craig Curtis, but Craig's managed to get that position back. Josh Martin is now up into 11th, so it's Brad Smith on provisional pole in 12th place. Andy Dorman busy chasing Chris Blakey at the moment. Blakey has a moment off the track, and it's Andy Dorman now up into 5th position. Remember, started 4th, best qualifying of the 8 event campaign so far. So Andy's still there or thereabouts, scoring some decent points, as we saw from last week's top 3. A 5th position in one of the races could be enough to get in the virtual silverware.
Oh, getting a little bit closer as we headed into the braking zone. Good to see they just about avoided each other, though. Also, hello, everyone. I'm back.
Yes, well, welcome back, Reeve.
I had a small incident with a large insect. I won.
Well, you've been a bit of a swat.
Oh, I don't like insects. They've got their place, just not in my room.
That's a little bit. Well, I've got the windows open here. We could end up getting. So I was doing an interview at the weekend actually in pit lane, and there was a wasp darting. The guy I was interviewing was like panicking, and I just carried on. And it's actually the best thing if you've got the bottle to do it, because the wasp will just sort of buzz around and then buzz off, which is quite handy. So Johnny Ogden makes a move here. We go overhead with Johnny having a look at Chris Blake. He doesn't pay off on that occasion, and Paul Laramie in the chocolate lime, as I call it, because I'm not sure if it is brown. It's probably maroon, but it just reminds me of you never had a maroon chocolate lime, clearly, but it reminds me of that. There's the late night coffee car running well. So Johnny Ogden in 7th, Chris Blake ahead of him, Andy Dorman 5th, Andy Carroll in 4th. Quick check on 12th and 11th for race 2. Josh Martin and Brian Smith 11th and 12th respectively at the moment. Eric Axelson has got the lead out to 2.9. So growing it a little bit, not as much as perhaps we thought. Thomas Potter still in P2 and 1.7 clear of Joel Lass. So Joel hasn't been able to fight back so far, but remains on the podium.
Yeah, Thomas has got a good few tenths over Joel Lasker at this moment in time. Eric Axelson, though, only driver at the moment in the 128s. 128.9 on the last lap. We're on board with Catherine Potter, Thomas's sister, of course, currently in the 130s, best lap 129.6, so right in the mix there in that midfield battle, as we say, and it is hotting up at midfield. We're on board at the moment with Johnny Ogden at the top end of that midfield battle, and he's putting the pressure on Chris Blakey, as actually it looks like Thomas Potter potentially having a bit of an issue there. Has lost a couple of positions, dropped down from Joel Lask, Andy Carroll as well. He is underway, though. That's the most important thing, is able to carry on. I suspect a bit of a run into the gravel, perhaps. The gravel doesn't seem too punishing here, actually. I thought it might be a bit of a barrier. That might be, going back to one of Eric Axelson's comments, might be an old video game memory of mine. I think it was Forza Motorsport back in 2011. Right. You'd be playing Laguna Seca and you'd drop off onto the gravel and your car would come to a dead stop. So perhaps ever since then I've been a bit scared of gravel at Laguna Seca. It might not be that bad.
Well, if Thomas is off, I'm guessing, as many other drivers' offs will be, because you're just trying to push the car as far as you can to close in on whoever's in front, or if you're out front, to try and pull away. But he's recovered well, so it was obviously fairly marginal, which is, as a driver, what you want really to, limit any damage in terms of time or places lost, and it seems that was the case for Thomas. So Axelson's still out front, Joel Last out in P2, and Andy Carroll started way back in 8th place, so great stuff from Andy Carroll to get up onto a potential podium. There is the Key Point Intelligent car, actually not that far away from Joel Lask here. We've still got 9 minutes on the clock. Thomas Potter, remembers, already had one recovery to get. When he lost second position, he managed to get back into it. So it's not inconceivable he could get back on the podium here if Andy Carroll makes a mistake. And Thomas will certainly have the bit between his teeth as 2nd, 3rd and 4th go down through the corkscrew down to Wayne Rainey curve now. Nice that the track respects the biking community as well as the car racing community. Americans, of course, love both iterations of motorsport. Down into turns 10 and 11. Andy coming out of turn 11 now onto the main straight, the long straight, which will go down to the Andretti hairpin.
Speaking of recoveries, I was just about to mention that Craig Curtis was having a really strong recovery. Actually, obviously had that very early issue with getting off the line and was slowly working his way up the order. As I was about to say that, he had a collision with a wall at about 25 miles an hour by the looks of things, and took his front splitter off. He's back underway now, but he's lost a few positions after that. I can't imagine that car is particularly enjoyable to drive at this point in time, perhaps demonstrated there. So it'll be, I think, a race of attrition really for Craig Curtis. It'll just be about bringing it home at this point and setting himself up well for the reverse grid race.
Yeah, he is. So he's in 9th at the moment. So the front row as things stand, will be Brad Smith and Josh Martin with Catherine Potter and Craig Curtis on row 2. So you didn't actually put the curse of the commentator on it, but you would have done if he'd have gone off a little bit later on, as it was say something that you were about to say. Josh Martin running with this group as well might be able to make up some more places, but there have been a lot of drivers that have made huge progress in this run. And say Andy Carroll, I mean, Josh Martin's maybe made more places up, so he might be the biggest improver, as Paul Laramie is passed and then clatters with Craig Curtis. Laramie loses a little bit of momentum as a result. That one could be a Monday nighter, very possibly. But Curtis back into 8th position. Good for him for this race for points. Not so good for the reverse grid start, but we'll see. Remember, started P3 in this one behind Thomas and Eric. And talking of Thomas, we catch up with him, closing in on Andy Carroll, and I think this battle is about to get going here, Ruth.
It is absolutely. Thomas looking very eager as he heads on to the next lap just behind Andy Carroll, as we say. Both very formidable drivers in this championship. Thomas on a great bit of form at the moment, showing a good pace here. His previous lap, let's have a look at that. That was a 1:29 flat, so looking much stronger than Andy Carroll's on his previous lap, and just about matching the likes of Eric Axelsen out in front. Heading up towards the middle sector now, the corkscrew. You have to be a very brave driver to attempt an overtake heading into the corkscrew, but heading towards it is a good place to get an overtake done. On the exit of the corner there, Thomas up into P3, just about forces his way through, goes down the inside. You lose all the depth of the corkscrew with that area view, but trust me, it is a substantial drop. And then we have another one as we drop towards the bottom of the circuit with Thomas Potter, this time in P3. Now his next task to hunt down Joel Lask. That's if Andy Carroll doesn't have any other ideas.
I'm sure Andy will have some ideas about that, but it's a good move. We said Thomas was going to try and fight back, so good stuff from Teapot, but this is good from Andy Carroll as well, and he's going for the outside run here. This is reminiscent of what we saw Potter trying on Eric Axelsen earlier on in the race, in the opening laps, where he was challenging for the lead, and Carroll goes wide, might try and go for the cut back on the inside, maybe a little bit too far back at the moment, but certainly giving the Teapot a little bit of a workout. I'll be giving my Teapot a workout after the race, because a Cup 2 always goes down very well after a couple of hours of race commentary. So Axelsen out front, last second, Thomas Potter in third. We ride on board with Andy Carroll in 4th place, Andy Dillman 5th, Chris Blakey is next up from Johnny Ogden. Pole position still for race 2 is with Brad Smith provisionally, and we've still got 5 minutes to go, so plenty of battling to be had in the closing minutes of race 1.
Yep. Always thought this race might heat up even more at the very end. Bit of a tradition actually at Laguna Seca. Just look at some of the Porsche Cup stuff. As we see Johnny Ogden, we're on board with at the moment, heading through up the hill once again. 50 seconds into this 1 minute 30, approximately 92nd lap here at Laguna Seca. It goes to show, I think, the remarkable pace of these Cupra Leon competitions, really. Laguna Seca is by no means a small and easy track to negotiate, and these cars do it in a fairly short lap time.
They do. I rather fancy this place as a holiday destination, and maybe go and watch the Indy cars at some stage if it doesn't coincide with other racing that I'm working on. It's one of the places that looks beautiful, great bit of racetrack, and I'm sure it's great to go to a big event. We've got our big event on at the moment though. Smith and Potter still at 12th and 11th respectively. Josh Martin seems to have slowed up on his progress, can't deal with Paul Laramie. Josh going through.
Laguna Seca actually a track that quite recently experienced some issues in regards to I think what we'd call planning permission here and that sort of thing. Local residents not quite happy about the noise from the circuit. But we're glad to see that I think this historic circuit has prevailed and will remain open.
It beggars belief, doesn't it, when that happens? You know, I mean, it's 1957. I mean, how many of these people, you know, that have moved into the area didn't know about the track? You know, we have the same thing over here, don't we? Absolutely ridiculous. Same thing with MS UK. I'm glad that clubs have been having a pop at MS UK this week about some of the ridiculous changes they're proposing to some of the regulations next year. We took them to task on one of the live streams at the weekend as well. So, some things are absolutely bonkers, aren't they? What are they going to do? Just build a load of houses on it? What do you do?
I mean, I'm sure all of the drivers currently on screen are in agreement as well. If I lived near a racetrack, this near to a racetrack like this especially, I wouldn't get anything else done in my life. I'd just be there constantly.
Well, I mean, the thing is, you'd probably end up working there in some respect, as a coach or whatever. That's what people do. It brings tourism to the area, in terms of hospitality, whether it's B&Bs, hotels, or anything like that. And it's short. So if the thing's already there, why, what is the grounds for changing it? I really don't understand it. Really don't. But hey ho, there we go. Brad Smith. So potentially pole position man. Brad now is. Oh, actually, he's not. He's up to 11th, isn't he? He's past Catherine Potter and now challenging Paul Laramie for 10th. So he's fighting to get a row further back on the second race. 1:40 left on the clock now. He's looking pretty tasty here, pretty racy. He might well get past Paul Laramie before the end. So could have Paul Laramie on the front row for race 2.
Yeah, he's looked fairly good, as you say, on board with Brad Smith, though. I think this could be quite an interesting reverse grid race, actually. We've got the likes of Brad Smith. We saw briefly Josh Martin in the mix for reverse grid pole as well. We've got some big names who are hovering around the P10, 11, 12 kind of region, so I think the reverse grid race is going to be certainly one to watch.
Yeah, I think it is. Paul Laramie's dropped a couple of places over the last few tours, but Eric Axelson's still in command of this race from Joel Laskin P2. Thomas Potter, who has had a seesaw race but fought back from both of his moments. Whether it was an off the second time, we don't know, but certainly his challenge for the lead resulted in going down to third, got back to second, then down to fourth, back into third place. So a potential podium for the Teapot. Andy Carroll is in fourth from Andy Dorman. Again, really scoring consistently is Andy Dorman. And Kath Potter at the moment is going to be our pole position starter for the reverse grid race with 20 seconds left on the clock, and Eric Axelson heading for another win.
Catherine, of course, familiar with pole in the reverse grid race, seem to be progressing with each attempt at it as well, so it'll be good to see how she fares in this reverse grid race as we've got some more action heading to the mid part of the lap. Now down the inside, Paul Laramie there. Nice move defending from Brad Smith. Brad Smith having a look around the outside, but there's gravel there, so he's going to dart to the inside for turn 6 coming up in just a moment. No, he's going to stay on the outside. In fact, he's going to go a little bit too outside and onto the gravel.
Indeed he does, but here is our winner-elect coming up towards the line. It is Eric Axelson who takes another win. Pole position to checkered flag. He was challenged, though, not by this man, Joel Lask, who takes second place. Thomas Potter, the initial challenger, comes home in third from Andy Carroll. Andy Dorman is fifth. Wait for Johnny Ogden. Here comes the late-night coffee car up across the line. Takes sixth position from Chris Blakey and Craig Curtis. So Blakey will finish in seventh place, Craig Curtis in ninth position. And again, I'll remind you, from the back of the grid is Josh Martin from Paul Laramie. Kath Potter comes home in 11th place, and Brad Smith is in 12th. Those two reversing their positions in the closing stages of the race. We will catch up with our top 3 in just a couple of minutes' time after we've heard from Evnia. And we are back with our virtual podium, and we are going to start with. We try and juggle these around, me and Reeve, so we get to talk to different drivers. But as the fickle finger of fate decrees, the man I spoke to after qualifying is the first man I talked to on the podium of our race one, Thomas Potter. Thomas, well done on the podium. Super race. Couple of key things to ask about. First of all, really great challenge for the lead early doors there against Eric. So talk us through that.
I just felt if I get the pressure, if I did get the move done, I felt like I could have probably drove away because always defend off of the whole race. Because at the end, when I got some good consistent laps in, I was actually faster on most of them. So just wish I could have got the move done.
Yeah, I think Eric managed to nick fastest lap off you, but certainly the early stages, I had you as the fastest driver on the track. Obviously, that move, brave stuff, but as we saw, can result in you losing a place, which you did. But you fought back. So talk us through the mindset and the move getting you back into P2.
Well, on comes me and Joe were thinking if we work together. At that time, I did have pace to catch up Eric then. Well, Eric just does his stuff and drives away, but at that time we felt if we work together we can get Eric and get a 1-2 for Phoenix, but it just didn't work out.
And what happened when you dropped back to fourth? Was that a little mistake? Was that an off or?
Well, on the brakes in the corner, just like tyre got on the wrong side of the curb and just spat me off. But then managed to get back into third, then managed to drive away, which is quite hard as well. This top four is all consistent on the lap times, but just managed to get it, then had a safe run home to P3.
Relatively happy with that?
Yeah. I know I've got pace at P1, that's what I'm going to aim for race 2, but still happy with the podium and how competitive the drivers are in VRRC.
Yeah, excellent, mate. Yeah, it's a top job and a good race. And thanks for the entertainment you and the other guys and girls provided for us in that one. Thomas Potter, well done. Third place, race 1. Let's go to Reeve and P2.
Yes, move on to P2. Second step on the podium, it is Mr. Joel Last. Congratulations, Joel. Started from P5 after qualifying, work your way up to the second spot of the podium. How did that happen then?
I think it was just on the start. It seemed to be able to get the start bang on, to be fair. And I think it was Craig Curtis that bogged down right at the get-go and managed to dip up the inside of him, then get past Andy Dorman. And then from there, it was just sort of push along with to Tom to try and catch Eric. But yeah, Eric was just too fast in this instance. But we'll see what we can do for race 2.
We've seen a little bit of working way up the order in race 1. So are we expecting good things for race 2 then?
Yeah, to be fair, I mean, we can launch the car really well. I mean, race 2, normally I seem to manage to find a gap somewhere or other. There's a few quick drivers along the front few rows, so we'll see what we can do. But yeah, hopefully we should end up potentially a podium with a bit of luck. I know last round I went for a P1, but it just didn't quite happen. The stars in the line, but this time round I think we got a good opportunity.
I know the Phoenix crew had a bit of a practice race. Do you feel like that contributed to your guys' success? Obviously, we've got 2 Phoenix cars on the podium. So do you think that helped?
Oh yeah, definitely. I mean, practice makes perfect, right? I think for us, it's knowing where you can overtake, where you can't. Where you need to tuck in behind someone, where you need to put pressure on, things like that. We want to make sure it's safe and clean more than anything. So yeah, I mean, we'll see what we can do in the second race, but yeah, it's looking good for now.
And just want to know as well, how did the car feel out there? Were tires holding up? Did the car feel good under race trim?
I mean, the car felt okay, don't get me wrong, like the ballast definitely hurts. I mean, I got 38 kilos. I think Eric is loaded with plenty of ballast as well, but he managed to get the clean air and just set those consecutive laps. I think for those that don't have the ballast, obviously it's a little bit easier. They get a bit more poke out the corners and down the straights and things like that. But yeah, I mean, the car felt good for the whole. And we'll see what we can do in race 2.
Well, I wish you the very best of luck for race 2. Hopefully we will see you with another strong result after that race as well. Thank you very much, and congratulations on P2 once again, Joel.
Cheers, thank you.
Well done, Joel. Thank you, Reeve, as well. The way it turns out, I haven't spoken to this fella for a little while, so it's a great pleasure to say well done to Eric Axelsson, winner of race number 1. Well done, Eric. Good to speak to you again. I'm guessing far from easy as ever.
Thank you, Richard. Yeah, I mean, yeah, that was a good lap 1 with Thomas. I had a great start, and then in the first corkscrew, I messed up. I missed the braking point, and I lost some speed there. But yeah, we had a good battle.
How many mistakes do you reckon you make over the course of a 25-minute race?
I don't know, but I always seem to make them on the first lap. I don't know.
Is there a reason for that? Is it cold tires? Is it sort of getting yourself in a race rhythm, or otherwise?
I think now this time I had to adjust to race fuel. The car was a little bit heavier. I haven't tried a race run, so yeah, it's a bit heavier, and I could feel it in the turn-in. So yeah, I think that made it. But as soon as I adjusted and got into the rhythm, it was fine. It was fine.
That's good. I hope you don't mind me asking about mistakes. I'm not trying to pick holes in what you've got. The reason I was asking is that it was interesting to get perspective on
not at all
how many the race winner and championship leader has. And Rich was telling us you were sort of playing with settings last week, asymmetrical settings, which maybe hampered you a little bit at Lime Rock.
Yeah, it did. I think for the last 2 rounds, I made some experiments with the setup, and for this round, I went back to the setup I used for the first round. So it seemed to work. It seemed to work better, but sometimes you just need to try something new, and sometimes it works, and sometimes it don't. So yeah. Yeah,
well, the results are back where you were at the first round, aren't they? I mean, pole position again and a win. So first couple of rounds, obviously. Actually, let's have a quick look. Let's have a quick look down the result sheet. So first and fourth round 1, first and fifth. So is fourth or fifth going to be a possibility from P12 on the grid?
It will be tough, especially at this track. But I think top 5 is good. It's a good place to aim for in race 2. Seems so. If I can end up in the top 5, I'm happy.
You never seem to, and this is meant entirely as praise for you, is you never seem to, go crazy and go for pass after pass. It's very much when there's a move to be made, you take it in the reverse grid races, and in that respect, you're actually very much like an English short oval stock car driver that I remember watching back in the day, who had to start all of his races at the back. Such was the sport then, and he would win so many, but again, he was not reckless. He would just pick people off, And do you have to control that urge to go past everybody in the opening stages?
I don't know. It's just my style, I think, and that's why I'm paired up with Josh Martin, because we have a similar style when we race.
Yeah.
Careful with other drivers, and so that's just our style, I think.
Well, congratulations on the 4th win. Thanks for having a chat with us. Always a pleasure, Eric. And we look forward to seeing what you can do in race 2. We wish you well with that. Wish you every success. And hopefully speak to you on the podium a bit later on. We'll let you get ready for the race.
Hope so. Thank you, Richard.
Thanks, Eric Axelsson. So Eric takes the win. Joel Ask in second place. Another great drive from him, and a great drive too from Thomas Potter as we head towards race 2 of the anti-penultimate round of this year's VRRC Cupra Leon Cup. The cars are on the grid and ready to go as our little drone shot, as it were. We'll have a little hover down the grid, and we see Brad Smith and Catherine Potter, Paul Laramie with Josh Martin next up, then Craig Curtis and Chris Blakey. Johnny Ogden is next up. He starts alongside Andy Dorman. Andy in the white and blue car. Jumbled up grid as ever. Obviously the same names get thrown at us race after race. But Reeve, who's your money on for this one?
Oh, I think that's tough to say. It's going to be an interesting one. I think, as I say, we've got some names mixed around really in the order. Obviously, Eric and Joel at the back. Andy Dorman slightly higher up. He's got some good pace at the moment. 4th in the championship at the moment. I think we're looking at someone in the midfield really who's going to be able to sieve their way through, but not without a fight.
Yeah, very definitely. It's going to be another interesting one. Particularly, this one is a particularly interesting turn 1. So we'll see how the fight goes with the reverse grid in this one. With, I remind you, Brad Smith on pole position, Catherine Potter alongside. Catherine getting more and more experience as the campaign goes on, not only of seat time in the competition, but she's had some more experience, as you pointed out, Reeve, of starting on the front, getting used to that. Lighting sequence is underway, and we wait for the lights to disappear, which they do, and now the cars will disappear off the line and down towards turn 1, and a great start, Reeve, by Brad Smith.
Yeah, absolutely fantastic getaway. Oh, I'm back. Internet dropped off there. Apologies. Catherine had a good start, but she's dropped off, lost a few positions there.
Yes, one of the cars that's gone past is Josh Martin. So there's Catherine Potter from P2. Remember, I'm guessing most of these circuits are going to be new layouts for Catherine to have to deal with. Many of the other drivers have raced here in other cars, different setups, but taken part in other championships on this layout before, as Paul Laramie is there in P2, coming under pressure from Josh Martin and Craig Curtis. It's Curtis on the outside line, Martin on the inside. This might be a good opportunity here for Josh Martin, maybe to get himself back onto the VRRC podium. And Curtis was very slightly forced wide there, so it's Laramie in P2. It will try and close down on Brad Smith. So it's Smith, the leader, as they come down the corkscrew for the first time. Paul Laramie in 2nd, Josh Martin 3rd, Craig Curtis in 4th, and all capable drivers capable of taking a race win potentially here.
Very much so. Paul Laramie, we saw certainly looking racy as we headed through the race 1 running, so I think he could be one to watch out for. Just as we had at the start of race 1, it's anyone's game really, isn't it, at this point?
Yeah, I mean, you just look down, anyone in the top 12 is capable of winning it off the front and battling for it. I'm surprised and pleasantly so that we managed to avoid the shenanigans on the first lap. There's a great shot. You can see how much the track comes down in terms of gradient from the main straight through the Andretti hairpin and then to where the pit lane exit is on the exit of the Andretti corner. So it is very much downhill from that point. So Smith from Laramie, Martin in 3rd place. Smith beginning to develop a little bit of a lead. And Josh Martin trying to convert P3 into P2 at the moment, but under pressure from Craig Curtis.
Yep, Josh Martin's had some fantastic drives so far this season, as has Andy Dorman, currently running in a P8, but he's going purple through the first sector, our first proper lap. Josh Martin now has the upper hand. A little bit of contact as he works his way through around the outside, though darts to the inside on the braking, up into P2 for Josh Martin. I know Paul's going to want to try and get that position back, though. Let's not count out Craig Curtis. He is a man on a mission, of course, to make up for a bit of a disaster in race 1. He wants to try and come back with a podium in race 2. Josh Martin currently running in 2nd position. Craig Curtis showing as 3rd at the moment. Paul has dropped a couple of positions towards the end of this lap.
Josh's best result this year so far, well, this campaign so far, is a P2, and so he'll be keen to equal that, but even more so to grab the win if he can get onto the top step and add to the wins that he's taken in other racing here. As Laramie and Craig Curtis get stuck in, so too is Joel Lask, who's coming through nicely as well. So Joel Lask up into P4 here, so 2nd in race number 1, double podium beckoning, and perhaps overall points on the day win for Joel Lask on the cards here. But it is very, very early days as we watch Eric Axelsson in 9th. So remember, Eric the winner, he's in 9th. Joel Lask, who is 2nd, is up to 4th.
Yeah, we've been talking about the performance of the midfield drivers here in the reverse grid. Oh, that's Paul Laramie pointing the wrong direction there. I'm not sure what type of issue he's had at this corner. Either way, it's disastrous for not only him, but a few cars in the field as well. I can tell you that Paul Laramie has no aero left. I think a few of the other cars as well have some damage to their front splitters and maybe their rear wings as well. That is very unfortunate for Paul Laramie there.
That's where many of my co-commentators in real life would go, that has to be a safety car. That has to be, can't leave the car there. And thankfully, we don't have to have that, do we?
No, I'm pleased to report we don't need to have a safety car. Instead, you just got an extra track feature. That's all.
Absolutely right. Yeah, a couple of the cars, having said that, did glance the car as they went past, and will, as a result, pick up a little bit of damage, which will hinder them on their way over the 25 minutes. We're nearly a fifth of the race through, and it's Brad Smith, Josh Martin, Craig Curtis, Joel Lask in fourth, Eric Axelson in P10. So Joel Lask Joel's doing a little bit of a climb up the order as well. Remember, he was away, wasn't he, for a couple of rounds, which were his drops. So he doesn't have to worry about drop scores too much. His brother Aaron raced at Donington Park for him, so I had half points there. So that will be one of the drops. But the car was on the grid as we watched Joel there trying to close down on a podium, and I think you'd be brave to bet against him getting that.
Yeah, absolutely. I almost want to half apologise to Eric Axelson as well. It wasn't quite the commentator's curse, but I was about to say we can't count Eric out either, because we know, as you discussed post race one, he is calm and collected, and he picks his rivals off one by one, slowly but surely works his way up. And of course, as I prepare to say that, he ends up collected an incident that wasn't his fault, but either way, it's perhaps hindered his progress. Good progress though for Craig Curtis, currently running in P3, putting the pressure on at Josh Martin, but don't count out Joel Lask, as we've been alluding to. Joel's got some great performance at the moment. In fact, previous lap it was a 1 minute 30, so slightly down to where we'd expect. That was his best lap, but Craig Curtis at 129.6, nearly the fastest man out on track.
Yeah, Brad Smith doing what he needs to do out front as well, made a super start and just getting away and building. We were talking about Anglesey earlier on, a corkscrew. I can't remember when in the minis. Now Rich Hayden will have to correct me on this one, but I can't remember in the minis whether it was Anglesey Coastal or International. It was Coastal, so yeah, corkscrew obviously suits him because he took a win there, as well as the incredibly boring Thruxton circuit as well. So not boring when these guys are racing on it, but you know, flat out in two corners. That's it, isn't it?
No holds barred, I see, when it comes to judging the racetracks.
Yeah, I mean, to be fair,
Herman Tilke. So.
To be fair, I do actually like Thruxton, but it's some of the in-car stuff can be a little bit boring. But it is exciting because you do get the brave drivers that will make a move at Church, and they'll, you know, it's possible to make a move up into the chicane. It's also possible to pass into that first complex, but vast swathes of the tarmac are, or can be in certain types of racing, a little bit dull. It just depends on what you get. My favourite, though, one of my favourites is going up this weekend on touring cars. We're at the Donington GP, which I absolutely adore. Last year was a fantastic meeting. So as long as it doesn't rain and we don't have the drainage issues we had at the opening round of the year, then we'll be fine. Talking of fine, Eric Axelson trying to get himself back in the mix and down behind Olivia Krasnowska. So the young Scot is leading the van ahead of the championship at the moment. Let's see what Eric Axelson can do.
Yeah, this is not ideal for Eric, though. Those issues a few laps ago really hindering his performance. Now down into P12, my very, very quick napkin math makes that he needs to be making at least an overtake per lap at this point, if not more, in order to try and claw his way back up to any decent points or perhaps a podium. It's not ideal, especially with a damaged car as well.
John Lass now up into P2, so he will start the chase of Brad Smith as we look at the time in town. Craig Curtis in third, Josh Martin down in fourth place. Meanwhile, Eric manages to make the move. Thomas Potter coming through as well. So Thomas and Eric both with huge amounts of work to do after being on the podium. Oh! Now, who was that going off?
I didn't quite catch that, to be honest. See,
possibly, no, it wasn't Sam Walton, wrong colour. So anyway, we'll come back to, I was trying to work out who went down. But this is actually fascinating to watch, because although it's 11th and 12th place, it's almost the restart or the continuation of the battle we might have seen throughout race 1 had Thomas not dropped back. So this is the repeat really of the early stages of race 1, the opening laps, with Thomas Potter chasing Eric Axelsson. So a great race between those guys. Johnny Ogden down behind them. It's Brad Smith still out front now. The gap 2.2 between Brad Smith and Joel Lask. So we'll see whether Joel can close in. Brad Smith's just gone orange on his previous lap, a 129.438, but Joel Lask lapping in the 128 at the moment. So Joel Lask, the quicker of the drivers, and we'll try and close in. It'll be interesting to see whether Craig Curtis can keep up with him and work with him. But there you see the gap, the car in front. Brad Smith, our race leader. And as Reeve said earlier on, everybody in this group capable of taking the win.
Yeah, absolutely. This is going to be a very interesting phase of the race, not only for Joel Lask and Craig Curtis, as they need to determine whether or not they should work together or fight for P2 now, but also for Thomas Potter and Eric Axelsson, as we mentioned as well. Currently, it's Eric ahead of Thomas, with Lee Pearce in the middle as well. But as you say, that was a battle we saw perhaps brewing in race 1, didn't happen in the end. And what those two drivers need to kind of decide is, do they go to prove a point now and enjoy a battle for P11, or do they try and work together, have a completely different mindset and try and fight for the higher positions? And I think that's what could be going on in the heads of Joel Lask and Craig Curtis as well. Can they really be afford to be battling right now when they've got Josh Martin just behind, or do they instead think, let's put aside our differences for now? Brad Smith's out in front. He's had a comfortable-ish lead for the past few laps. In fact, for most of the race. Come on, let's work together and try and hunt down the car in orange up front.
Yeah, that is absolutely 100% got to be the aim for them, hasn't it? All about championship points. They don't want to have this as a dropped event, so great opportunity to score some top-heavy points here in the reverse grid race. But having said that, Joel, of course, had a decent score in race number 1. So either way, assuming he doesn't get any issues and get caught up in anything, then he should be on his way to a decent points haul and very possibly the overall shout on the day. So I'm just keeping an eye on the gap, 2.1. Now the gap's coming down slightly, but is it going to be quick enough? Still got 13 minutes on the clock as we see Axelsson, Walker and Pearcey all involved in a scrap.
Watching this battle here, led by Eric Axelsson, just behind him Alex Walker. Eric Axelsson and Alex have actually come a cropper with each other on a few occasions now in this series. So the reverse grid race providing plenty of action as ever. Should be, I think, rude of me not to give a brief shout out to Alex Walker. Recently kickstarted his real life racing career again with the C1 Endurance Series. Had some real life racing action over the weekend, and apparently that went very well for him. He made a few positions up, so I'm sure he's trying to bring on some of that good fortune into this weekend's worth of racing as well. I am going to call it a weekend. I like calling it a weekend.
I think it is, isn't it? But it's a virtual weekend, we can call it that. So who was he racing with? Who was Mr. Walker racing with the weekend, do you know?
Oh, you're testing my memory here. SRC Racing, I want to say. I know he's sponsored by I know he's sponsored by, I can't remember the race team off the top of my head. Either way, as I say, front wheel drive cars, maybe slightly different power levels, possibly ever so slightly a bit different, but maybe some findings he can bring forward there. Thomas Potter, meanwhile, also in the mix, just ahead of Alex Walker. Now he's going to be trying to catch back up to Eric. Their battle has been paused for a brief moment, and he's going to try and make sure it continues on.
Yeah, he will definitely try and make some places up as we pass the halfway stage of the race. The gap, first to second, now down to under 2 seconds. So Joel Lask is very definitely closing up on the race leader. Are we going to see a win and a second here, or is it going to be 2-2s? Desmond, as we used to call it back in the day, for Joel Lask, who is trying to close in. Brad Smith will be very well aware that he's got 2 quick drivers behind him, but also know that he himself pulled out the gap that you can see. That's all his effort in the early stages of the race. So he knows he can maintain it, and hopefully that confidence will carry him perhaps to the win as the Phoenix car continues to try and close it with Craig Curtis third. Josh Martin still in a relatively handy fourth position. Josh has been a very consistent finisher over the course of the season so far. Over 10 minutes to go.
Yeah, 1.7 seconds between Joel and Brad Smith. You have to say that usually when we see a driver build an early lead, they carry that momentum forward. You know, they've been able to look after the car. We see that gap expanding. But credit to Joel Lask and Craig Curtis. They've had this kind of battling going on while very much keeping Brad Smith within their sights. And with 10 minutes to go, I can't imagine Brad Smith is feeling particularly comfortable in that car in the lead at the moment. He certainly can't rest easy, can he?
No, he can't. It's not an easy thing to be. We've had this discussion before about, you know, do you want to be the chaser or do you want to be chased? And most people agree that there's less pressure in being the chaser. Sure, you're not in the position you want, getting the points that you want, but it's having that focus. And Brad Smith's got to try and focus on something else up front, and maybe just sort of kind of keep his racing lines, practice lines going. 1.6 now the gap. So again, coming down 9:55 on the clock. So it is, if nothing else, maybe setting us up for something of a grandstand finish, which might happen. But yeah, you can see the gap visibly now is coming down.
Yeah, absolutely. In terms of their pace at the moment, they're pretty equal, both in the 29s. Best lap, Joel Lask in the 28 there. So that's an impressive best lap from Joel, and they're both improving at the moment through the middle. Sorry, not the middle. The final sector. It's the shortest sector on the lap, but so far this weekend it seems to have proven to be the most pivotal part of the lap. Really nailing, I think, probably that final corner onto the start-finish straight seems to be the key to a good lap here.
Yeah, absolutely right. So here's Johnny Ogden challenging Lee Pearcey at the moment for 13th position. 12th position, beg your pardon, with Alex Walker up ahead of those at the moment. Alex still having a decent run here. What's the gap now? Still 1.5 for the lead. Joel Lask second, Craig Curtis in third place, Josh Martin still in fourth, and Johnny Ogden starting to put the pressure on Lee Pearcey here. Lovely little battle we're picking out for you to have a look at, and you can see here the benefit of being the chaser with no one behind. Johnny Ogden can be very generous with his line to take whatever line he wants in and out, but at the moment putting the pressure on, but it's being soaked up well by Lee Pearcey as they go down through the corkscrew, heading down towards rainy curve 9 and then down into 10. This battle as they were.
Yeah, there we can see Lee Pearcey going for a slightly wider line on entry, leaving the door open. And was that a mistake? As we can see, Joel Lask, was there just a bit too much? Sorry, not Joel Lask, Johnny Ogden. Was there just a bit too much room there for Johnny? I think there was, but it doesn't matter because Lee Pearcey perhaps expectedly had the upper hand in terms of straight line performance, perhaps a difference in setup there, or just a good run with that slightly wider line for Lee. Either way, it's Johnny still with the inside line as we head into the Andretti hairpin, and on the exit, it's Johnny Ogden up into 12th position.
Great stuff by Johnny. Just coming back to Alex Walker, I just had a quick delve into the TSL over the weekend, and he was actually racing with Scott Evans' team. Scott, who offered me a grass track drive in one of his cars, but I haven't managed to get down to the track yet. So Sandown Motorsport SCR with Ollie Anslow and Scott, and 12th position in the 354 car. I think we're going to catch up with the C1s later in the year. We did a meeting with a couple of weeks ago, which was great fun. And C1s, terrific entry-level motorsport. Really, really good. Great camaraderie there as well. SCR Motorsport, a great team too.
Fantastic to learn, I suppose. I've been obviously I've heard kind of the rumours of Alex's delving back into the world of real life motorsport. He will of course not allow his sim racing stuff to subdue. He really loves his sim racing stuff. It's been out of the group of friends I have, probably the most enthusiastic out of all of them really for the world of sim racing. But it's good to see him back involved, and hopefully I'll get to catch him at a couple of rounds at some point if I get a weekend free where I'm not replacing knackered cars.
That would be good. Maybe get you out in a C1 as well. There's loads of people that are quite happy to offer. There's lots of people willing to offer tests, and of course it's a shared responsibility in C1 for driving. So Worth a punt, worth a look if you get a chance. Joel
Who
Lass,
knows?
the gap. That's a no then. The gap's down to, because I've said similar things myself, 0.7 of a second down on the race leader. So, and it's the top three closing up now. It's not just second to first closing up. It could well be a three-way fight here for the lead with 5 minutes to go. So Brad Smith, who's done a super job so far and led this one well, but it's well and truly a battle, or will be, by the time they get to the end of this lap.
Yeah, could well be. That gap has really shrunk down now. A few extra tenths to Joel Last's favour. It's about 4 or 5 tenths of a lap quicker at this moment in time. So I should say 1 or 2 laps, I think, if we're going to have this battle. In fact, maybe we're going to see Joel Last on the rear bumper of Brad Smith at the end, by the end of this lap. But it's, of course, one thing to catch up, another thing to overtake. And let's not forget, Joel Last is dragging Craig Curtis with him. Craig Curtis has been waiting patiently behind Joel Last this entire time. This could be a fantastic play from Craig Curtis, of course, one thing to make up for the misfortunes of race 1 as we head into the final 5 minutes of race 2.
Absolutely right. Fascinating end in sight here, and it is a three-way battle for the race lead here with Brad Smith, who just did absolutely everything right off the start, got away cleanly, built a little bit of a lead, and, you know, boy, did he need that, because if he hadn't had that, he'd have been scrapping a lot earlier in this race. Actually, to be fair, it's not quite into battle mode yet, so maybe there's a little bit more left in Brad Smith's armoury, because he'll be looking in his mirrors. Having said that, Lasker closing out, Joel Last closing up as they go down through the corkscrew and into Rainey. So it's Smith, Lask, Curtis, Josh Martin back in 4th place, but barring any big problems, you're looking at the race 2 podium here for our reverse grid race. It is definitely getting closer now. 4 minutes on the clock, so possibly 3 more laps to go. Here they come down the straightaway again, as Josh Martin flashes through shots at the back end, and now Brad Smith, I think we're starting to see him get just a little bit more defensive.
Yes, absolutely. Everything that this race has seen so far, it all boils down to this, really. The previous 21, 22 minutes is completely forgotten about now. Now this is effectively a 3-lap race that just starts now for these top 3 drivers. The top 3 covering only 0.4 of a second. This is going to be fantastic stuff as we head into the middle sector of this lap. The first real overtaking opportunity of the sector coming up now. No one's going for it just yet, of course. Now it's going to be about getting a good run up the hill. A few overtaking opportunities up the hill, if not into the corkscrew, if you're feeling particularly brave. As we see a few cars going as wide as possible there, and Joel Lask has a good run. He's side by side, and into the lead goes Joel Lask. He made it look easy in the end. Brad Smith hanging around the outside. Joel Lask saw an empty space up the inside, and he leads now, does Joel Lask.
Sometimes those opportunities just present themselves at the right time, and the right time can mean the chasing car having the right momentum to go through. I think that's what we saw there with Joel Lask. Opportunistic now, but we've got Brad Smith defending that second position from Craig Curtis. So Craig's task now is to try and get past Brad and have a crack at Joel Lask out front. So 2 minutes 28 on the clock. This is the run. I was going to say down the straight, but it's actually uphill, isn't it? So we're going along the straight and then uphill over the brow. And we've got Joel Lask now with a couple of lengths clear of this battle for second position. Smith's still there with Craig Curtis trying to close in. And side-by-side contact for Curtis on Brad Smith. One for the Monday Nighters, maybe one for the chat when we get into the Park Ferme / Victory Lane interviews a little bit later on. Josh Martin perhaps closing in on these guys as well. And, a little bit too far back. I thought he was closing up, but he's too far back at the moment to get involved in the podium. But Craig Curtis, I think to be fair there, just backed out of that. Brad Smith running wide again, so a little bit of understeer from Smith, leaves the door open, and a change for P2 coming up.
Yeah, Brad Smith must be wondering what's gone wrong here. He must be wondering if there was anything else he could have done during the previous 20 or so minutes of this race down into P3. Of course, it's still a great result. Craig up into P2, very much on recovery at the moment. Joel Lask, meanwhile, has completely checked out in all of this battling we've just seen for P2. Joel, who had to fight for so long for P2 and for P1, sorry, has now just been able to walk away with it like nothing was ever different in this race, really.
No, absolutely right. Super job from him in this one. Let's have a quick check back. Eric and Thomas still battling hard, 8th and 9th. They both made progress, but bear in mind that Joel Lasker's taken a second in race number 1. This is the reverse grid race. Worked his way through, done a little bit of an Eric, chipped his way through, particularly chipping away at the lead, which he did lap after lap to get in front. 40 seconds on the clock. Craig Curtis third. We've definitely now got Josh Martin closing in for third place, but I think running out of time here to get a step on the podium.
Yeah, the seconds certainly ticking by now. Still not a huge margin between Brad and Craig. Josh Martin, as you say, just on the fringes of it as well. I think if this battle for P2 had continued on for any longer, Josh Martin would have been very much in the mix. Let's not forget he's still pushing on very well indeed. Green through the first sector on this lap of 34.1. So he's looking strong, about a few tenths of a lap quicker than his nearest rival at this moment in time. So Josh certainly on a charge. He'll be wishing there was just a few more laps in this race, I suspect.
Yeah, I think that is very much the case, isn't it? Joel Lasto out front, clock has ticked down, so last few corners to settle for the race leader, and there won't be any doubt as he comes around the last turn that provisionally he is going to be the top scorer of the day. We'll do a virtual buzz of the pit wall and take the checker flag. Joel Last takes the round win from Craig Curtis in P2. Brad Smith gets a podium in the end, a very well-deserved podium after a great opening stint from him. Josh Martin fourth from Andy Dorman, with Chris Blakey in 6th position from Andy Carroll. Eric Axelson finally battles up into 8th place from the Teapot. Thomas Potter in 9th, just ahead of his sister, Catherine Potter, wrapping up our top 10.
Yes, the top 10 that didn't look settled at any point in that race until the final few minutes there, and even then we had so many changes at the top end of the field as well. It was just like race 1, a bit of a slow burn, but certainly plenty of action no matter where you looked at any point.
Absolutely right. It was a good race. We're going to take a break while we round up the drivers for Victory Lane. So we will hear a little bit about AGON G4. So to kick off our podium interviews, let's head over to Reeve.
Thank you, Richard. And just like race 1, race 2 certainly had us on the edges of our seat. We weren't quite sure what it was going to be at the end, but in the end it was Brad Smith who came home in P3. Brad, I want to say commiserations, but it's still a fantastic result. You've ended up on the podium, another P3 to add plenty of points to your tally there, but of course pole at the start of the race. How are you feeling after that one?
Yeah, it is what it is. Then the two boys, Joel and Craig, had loads more pace than me. I've been slow on this track all week when we've been practicing. I was lucky enough to get pole and tried to counter, but it just didn't work out.
Yeah, you say you've been slow on the track, but clearly, as you say, you got poles, so it must be, it must have given you some merit. You had to battle in race 1, of course, for P12 in the end. We saw plenty of trading of paint, shall we say, in those positions at the end of race 1. So you ended up on pole for race 2. Do you think it was just down to maybe a lack of familiarity with the track, or was it perhaps the pace in the car was starting to drop off towards the end? Because we saw the other 2 drivers there, the car just seemed to have a few more tenths in it.
Yeah, it was just, I think I was just slow around this track. The first race I'd like to forget about, Mayor at the start of that. I'm sure Richard would be having a word with me about my start.
I think there was a few starts at the start of race 1 which might make for some good repeat viewing, shall we say.
Yeah, mine just wouldn't go in gear until the lights went out.
Oh, there you go. Car fault then. Racing driver excuse,
Yeah.
not yours.
Yeah, exactly. That's the excuse I'm sticking with.
So that brings an end, of course, to this round. But what are your feelings heading into what will be the penultimate round of this season then next week?
Well, I was hoping at the start of the season to be fighting for a top 3 position, but that looks like that's gone out the window. So I think it would just be damage limitation.
Okay, and we head next week, of course, to Assen. Is that a track that you're happy with? Are you looking forward to racing there?
I've only ever done it once in the BMW's last championship, and I really didn't get on with the BMWs. So it's going to be a whole new track, basically.
Yeah, I suppose it's a very different style of car, isn't it? So
yeah,
hopefully you head into that with fresh eyes.
Yeah, I'm going to be doing plenty of practice.
Yeah, I wonder. I'm starting to see, but I think we're seeing the numbers tick up as we go further into the season. I thought we might see the opposite, but we're starting to see so many drivers now putting in hundreds and hundreds of laps of practice as we get later into the season. Are you certainly one of those who's starting to pick it up now as we get towards the end, as the last kind of fight in the championship?
Mine's actually gone backwards. I think I started off really well, and then like this week, I think I've done something like 40 laps. I just weren't gelling with the car and with the track in this car, and it's a bit off-putting. I was like 6-7 tenths off Joel during practice, and it was I just couldn't get the grips. But yeah, and then quali was just horrendous. I couldn't get anywhere near my best time.
Well, I don't want to sound too downtrodden, because you're here being interviewed because you are, of course, on the podium. So congratulations on that once again. You put in a mighty effort there. It was a great battle. Did you enjoy that?
Yeah, it was good. Yeah. I knew as soon as I saw them 2 behind me in second and third, I was like, oh, it's going to be a big one now. And I think Joel got past me with 3 minutes left, something like that. I just couldn't hold it any longer. I was trying my hardest, but it was destined to be third by the looks of it.
Yep, still a mighty impressive job, as I say, and I'm wishing you all the best for Assen next week. Hopefully you enjoy that track as well. So thank you very much, Brad. Congratulations on P3 in race 2 once again.
Thank you very much. Well done, Joel and Craig.
Good stuff. And handing over now to Richard, who is interviewing our driver in P2.
Thanks very much, Reeve. Well done, Brad, and well done, massive well done to Craig Curtis on P2. Well done.
Thank you, Rich. Yeah, after race 1 and my god-awful start, I was fuming after that start. I think I dropped down to P18 or P17. But really enjoyed race 1. I was I'm not sure on the pace of the guys ahead, but I was maybe aiming for a top 12 to get reverse grid pole. But when I started to rein in the first top 6 guys, I think it was, I thought maybe I can go, but the car just had a bit of damage on it. But yeah, this race I started from P5, I think, and had a good start, and yeah, just managed to. I think on the first lap or just after the first lap, I saw Joel right behind me. I thought, where's he come from? Because I think he was starting in P11, so he must have had a blinder of a start. But yeah, I really enjoyed that race. Once I managed to drop Josh a little bit, I could see Brad way up ahead, and I thought, well, there's no chance of getting him. Joel managed to get by at some point, so I thought if I can hold on to Joel, because his pace was mega this evening, especially in the race. So I thought if I can hang on to him and then rein Brad in a little bit, and then hopefully try and pressure him into a mistake. So I'm glad I made up for my bad race 1 start.
Yeah, you nick my line there. Everything I was going to ask you, you've said about starting P5 and also living with Joel, because he's had a second in race one and a winning this one. So yeah, not too shabby really.
Yeah, it's almost like an honour now to live with Joel, if I can. So yeah, I'm just happy to get another podium again. And like I said, I'm gutted about race one, but it's always good fun when you're in the pack anyway. So either or, it doesn't really matter to me. But again, yeah, just want to give a big shout out to Joel and Brad. Really, the Phoenix boys did really well tonight.
That's really good. I mean, just looking through your stats, your qualifying's gone pretty well so far this year. Was it 11th last week? But aside from that, first week in, it was an 8th and a 4th, a 2nd and a 3rd. The other ones aside from that, and you're banging in results either on or just away from the podium. Obviously, another podium this evening. So very consistent. And I make it now, according to the chart which we've just got up, you're a point behind Brad in the standings and 3 points behind Andy Carroll. So it's very, very tight in that region of the table that you three guys are in.
Yeah, it's very close. I've had a couple of bad rounds. I think last week at Lime Rock was a low score for me, like Barcelona, but I really enjoyed both those races, in all fairness. So regardless when you score the points, if you have a good race, then that's what you can look to take away from it. But in terms of the championship, I don't think I'm in with a shout. Maybe the top 5, maybe if I have a good race in Assen, and then I think it's Virginia the last race, so which I've never driven before, so I'll have to get on the practice for that. But yeah, like I said, I'm just really enjoying racing these guys, and the more experience you get, the better you get.
Absolutely right. What does the non-sim part of your week look like generally?
Just work. I work in sort of office management, so it's been busy. We've been having a few refurbs here and there, and so I'm praying to get home early on Wednesday nights, especially. So and like I said, jump on when I can. When the wife's she was watching Love Island, but she's now watching a new show called Love Is Blind. So I'm like, yes, there's like 5 seasons of that, so I can distract them and then jump on the sim.
There was that book, wasn't there? Was it Men Are From Mars, Women Are From Venus? They have totally different program watches, don't they, to us?
Yeah, completely different. She has dragged me into it a few times, but I just scuttle off quietly, and then she hears the sim loading up. So I'm like, oh, he's in there again.
The thing about getting back from work, I mean, that's actually a key thing. I actually had to do a little bit of a dash back today as well, because I've been up in Derby this week working, and had to sort of rush back mid-afternoon to come in. Obviously, we have the option not to do it, but I think we lost Scott Booker because he was late from work today, which is a little bit of a shame. So it's a big shout out to you guys that are making the effort to get back, get some practice in, and and join us on a Wednesday night. It's been good to watch. So Craig, have a good week. Well done on P2. Look forward to seeing you at Virtual Assen next weekend.
Thank you, Rich. Really appreciate it. Cheers, guys.
You too, mate. Thanks. And on to our winner now. So back to Reeve.
Thank you very much, Richard, and congratulations, Joel Lask, our winner from race 2. Impressive results throughout the weekend, really. You must be pretty happy with that.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I didn't think I'd be standing on the top step of the podium. It was unlucky for Brad. I think if he'd have held on and not dipped the gravel, then he would have won that quite happily. But yeah, these things happen, and you take the points you can get.
Yeah, absolutely, and as we say, you have to work. You have to work for that one, really, didn't you? Because obviously, reverse grid race. So, were you quite happy there on Laguna Seca?
Yeah, I mean, don't get me wrong, it's not my favourite track. There's a few corners that I didn't quite like. I really couldn't hook up, and that definitely affected my lap time, especially in qualifying. But to be fair, like the race pace was there. Luckily, Eric was held back a little bit. If not, I think he would have been further up the grid. But we managed to break away from the pack, and from that point on, like Craig, to be fair to him, he was all over me. He was definitely quicker than what I was, and fair play. I mean, if not, I think he probably would have got past me. But yeah, I mean, it is what it is. We'll take what we get.
Yeah, you've had some strong results here at Laguna Seca. You made up 3 positions in race 1 overall, then you made up 10 here in the reverse grid race. So it's a strong weekend for Phoenix as a whole, and as well, obviously, we talked about that after the end of race 1. We had 2 Phoenix cars on the podium, and then in race 2, we've got 2 Phoenix cars on the podium again. Brad seems, as you say, fairly downbeaten, I think, about his P3, but still a respectable result. So you must be fairly happy as a team overall, then.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, that's what it's all about. I mean, we put in the hours of practice. That's the main thing. We all work together as a team and make sure that we're all on the pace and we're all running the same setup and we're all figuring out what works best for one another. Like I say, it was unlucky for Brad. He didn't have that much time to practice because of work, and he came in and he was already, gapping us on race 2. So, like, the pace was there. I think it was just one of those unlucky, unfortunate incidents where he dipped it in the gravel, and that is what it is. But yeah, like we can't grumble. I mean, points mean prizes, right? So yeah, I mean, it's nice to go from 11th to 3rd in the championship by all means. But I mean, let's see what we can do against Scott and Eric. I mean, Scott wasn't here this evening, so you never know what he would have done and how quick he would have been. But it's definitely helped. So thank you, Scott, for not being here this week.
Yeah, it's been a good weekend overall, and I think heading into next week, are you hoping to, as you say, fight to that championship? You hoping to carry that momentum forward into Assen?
Oh, 100%. I mean, Assen in the BMWs. I mean, if you watch the stream back, I think there was me, Jack Smith, and Scott that were probably changing position for first place about 3 times a lap. So it was a really tight knit track, and I really enjoyed it. Probably the best racing that we've done in VRRC just yet. So yeah, hopefully it'll be the same in the Cupras, and we can put on a show for the viewers.
Oh, big words there. Best racing. I'm looking forward to it even more than I was already. And maybe I can raise your spirits up just that little bit more as well now. Now I'm going to have to prepare for this and make sure I actually get it right this time. But I am pleased to announce, I'm pretty certain this time, that you are in fact our driver of the day based on those impressive performances.
Awesome. Thank you very much. I appreciate that.
No problem at all. Joel Lasker, our winner from race 2 there, and podium in race 1 as well.